All right, good afternoon, YouTube. What's going on, guys? This is Mark coming at you from the TRADEPRO Academy headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario. Just going to do a quick update here. Not too much to cover this morning, since we do have the highly anticipated FOMC coming out at 2 p.m. So that is what most traders in the world are going to be keeping an eye out for. And you've kind of seen, not that much volume in the S&P 500 today. We're sitting at around 560,000, which is quite light. And this is basically what we're expecting, as that FOMC statement is going to be coming out at 2 p.m. So we will be trading that live with our team, with the elite team in the elite room. That's going to open up at 1:45 p.m. for our elite team. So if you guys want to see how, professional trading community trades these kinds of news events, you still got a little bit of chance to get in there before we do open that up with our team. So that being said, let's cover some of the major news updates overnight, and rather not overnight, through the morning session, throughout the US session. And we had a couple of numbers come in this morning. Georgie mentioned it, the ADP non-farm employment change came in at 156,000 versus 150,000. The other news, rather economic releases that came out, we had the Chicago PMI at 9:45 a.m. That came in at a pretty nice miss, came in at 44.4 versus 51.7 expected. And the other major announcement we had for crude oil, which is another of the assets that we do cover, we had the EIA inventory report come out, and I'm just opening that up here to see exactly what it came in. I believe it was a pretty bullish number. Let's see. So crude oil number came in at a draw of minus 8.5 million barrels versus minus 2 million expected. So that's bullish on the crude front. Gasoline front came in at minus 1.8 million versus minus 2 million expected. So still a draw, however, not as much as expected. So that's slightly neutral. Distillates as well came in at minus 0.9 million versus plus 1 million expected. So a bit of a draw on that front, which is quite bullish on the distillates. So overall, you had a bullish crude draw, you had a bullish distillate draw. Gasoline, you had a draw as well, however, not as bullish. It missed what's expected. So that being said, we also saw a squawk coming out of the White House, mentioning that China trade meetings are constructive. China confirmed plan to buy more agricultural products from the U.S. Expects talks on deal to continue into early September. So that's basically what we had on that front. We also had the Chinese Global Times editor-in-chief, Hu Jian, who's been very, very vocal on Twitter since the beginning of this trade war, almost a year back now, mentioning that U.S. and China expected to hold intensive working level consultations in August before next high-level meeting in September. So George has mentioned this once. This gentleman seems to be, tied in with the state, and he's kind of speaking on behalf of the state, if you will, sort of how Trump is on Twitter. So that's all that we got on that front. Again, as anticipated, our 2 p.m. FOMC statement coming out, and that's what our traders are going to be trading. Hello, Srinivas. So that's what we got on that front. Let's take a look at the quote board, see where we're sitting with regards to the current volume, current daily change percentage, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, so you should be seeing my charts up at the moment, and in front of you, you'll have crude oil right up top, 414,000 contracts on the session so far. We are slightly above the previous day close, which was around 58.30, and we're kind of sitting just above it right now, 58.36. So crude, it's been kind of a choppy day, despite, that bit of a bullish release. Crude did rally to start right after that release. However, you can see that we've had a pretty nice sell-off right over the overnight highs, and we've kind of been sitting in that range. So that's what we're seeing on crude. However, the real market that we're going to be following today, tracking closely, is the S&P 500s, since that is what is likely going to be the most affected by this FOMC statement, that and the US dollar. So SPOOs here, you're seeing 566,000 contracts, still still relatively light volume. I would expect after FOMC for this day to close somewhere in the 1.5 to 2 million contracts traded. However, at this point in the day, this is kind of what's to be expected leading into the FOMC statement. So no surprise here. Daily change percentage also not really big of a surprise. The fact that we are relatively flat on the session. As mentioned, traders are looking for these FOMC statements to come out to get a little bit more clarification with what's going to happen next. And so that's why you're not seeing that much direction in the markets. That being said, let's jump into our pivot charts. So crude, again, you guys can see we were kind of mentioning yesterday that these levels in the 5740s, I believe, these swing highs here, that was a big resistance level in crude. And you can see that they did hold that level off, but overnight ramped up and traded above that $58 handle. And if I zoom in a little bit more now, you'll see here we're kind of approaching, another previous level of swing highs here. So not the straightest drawing, but you can see that's kind of where we're coming into. And as a result, crude is kind of peeling off of that R1. So that's kind of what we're seeing on the session. These are hourly bars. You can see this one big hour that was at 10:30. That's the 10 a.m. one, basically where we had the EIA report. So you can see we pressed our heads above R1 and then sunk back below it. And we've since maintained below that R1. So kind of as it stands, we are finding support here in the 58.20s. Could look for a little bit of a press back down into that $58 handle, maybe back into that pivot into today's close. So as long as we maintain below that open, we'll look for, a little bit further downside to come through. S&P 500. Whoops, that's not the one I want to open. This is the one I want to open. Again, we're kind of in a choppy range. This market's just waiting for FOMC to come out. At this point, we're kind of sat right in the middle of that range, and it could really go either way. So we're not really going to look to do anything until that report comes out. So taking a look at these pivots, not really going to do much for us at the moment. We have been kind of holding it as support, but the market doesn't care about, pivot level, especially this kind of a release where, it's super highly anticipated by majority of the traders. Wouldn't really be looking to do much at this moment. So for this market, you can argue it is still bearish. We did have that little rotation up. This is forming, really choppy range. But as it stands, it's kind of holding below that overnight high or the opening range high here in the 17s. And so as it stands, you are seeing wicks coming up in here, wicks coming up in there. So there are some sellers defending this level. And that's kind of what we'll watch for into the FOMC. We'll basically look for, confirmation of structure based on the report. And then we'll look to get in after the impulse move generally happens. You get the correction, some consolidation, and then that's where we look to get in for the move back up. So that's what we got on these markets here, guys. Crude oil, as I just mentioned, overall, we are still relatively bullish. And despite the fact that we broke overnight highs, we came up, sold off. Now we kind of rotated back into the open and we kind of held that level. So as it stands, you are seeing rotations like this. Recently, we just had a bit of a pull off of these lows here around the 58.10s into that open. And now that rotation back down did not quite get back below these lows. So now we'll see if it runs back up to retest that open again. Once it gets back up there, you have an opportunity to potentially sell it back again, or wait for that breakout, wait for the rotation down, and then look to hammer it out. So that's what we got on that front. S&P 500, just like I was mentioning, pretty choppy at the moment. However, from a structure perspective, this thing is still bearish as it stands. We did poke our heads above this level here, but tried it here. There's a little double top failure right in there. And then we pressed back below that level. Now we're just rotating up, finding some resistance and kind of forming some structure now between the opening range low and the opening range high. And that's pretty much it. So you guys can see off the open, we sold off, rallied back up. Now we're basically where the day open. So not much direction on today, and I kind of anticipate this being the range until we get that FOMC statement at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's pretty much what we got on that front. That's what we got on that front. Let me answer some of the questions here in the chat. Thank you guys for popping in. Srinivas, what happens if there is no rate cut? Do we see dollar weakness still? So if there is no rate cut, we will likely get a pop in the US dollar and a big it's going to be an aggressive sell-off in the equity markets if we don't get a cut. The fact that everyone is, it's basically baked in the fact that we're gonna get a 25 basis point cut today. That's what the market has priced in, and if we don't get that, that's when you get a repricing of the market. You get that price discovery. So right now, everyone's expecting a 25 basis point cut. If that does happen, we'll likely see a bit of a reaction in the market, especially in the S&P 500 to the downside. But ultimately, I'm kind of expecting that to get faded. I'm expecting a pop to the upside, and for that to get faded, basically one of those buy the rumor, sell the news situations, except flipped in this instance. You'd be selling the news and buying the rumor back, and so that's kind of what I'm anticipating. Don't know if that's going to happen, but if we do get no cut, or if we get a hike, which is even more unlikely, you'll likely get some big volatility and some good repricing opportunities there. So that's what would happen on there. The dollar's generally strong. With interest rates are one thing. Just the fact that the dollar is the reserve currency, it kind of makes things a little bit more complicated because everything's priced in the dollar as well. So if you get the dollar popping, you usually get commodities dropping, stocks, your equity markets drop as well. So they share kind of an inverse correlation on that front. So you guys kind of know what to watch out for in any of those scenarios. And that is basically it. Luciano. Awesome. Happy to have you here, my man. Eden, thank you so much for showing up. Appreciate you popping into the chat. Eden, yes, you can use a MacBook Pro with Sierra charts. The only caveat is you'll need to have basically an emulator program for Windows. So we do have a couple of the members on our team. They are running Macs or the MacBooks. They just have, I believe it's called Parallels. They've got a software called Parallels installed that essentially lets you run, Windows on your Mac. I know that's, if you got a Mac, you kind of want to stay away from Windows, but unfortunate fact is that a majority of the trading software is, built and designed for Windows. So maybe that'll change down the road, but as it stands, that's kind of the only way to get it running on a Mac is through a emulator. So that's what I got for you guys today. Just going to finish this up here. I got to jump on a call at 1 p.m. So I'll just run our final numbers here for July, and we'll jump off of the call, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. So for today's room, nice bounce back from yesterday's session. Yesterday, bit of a down day. We don't hide from that. We're, completely transparent. We do get these kinds of days where the majority of the room is red, once a quarter, more or less. The last one we had was back in, I believe it was March or in May. Yeah, it was back on May 31st. So that was the last time we had one of those days, but a nice bounce back from the team today, a little bit more direction than we saw yesterday. So great results on that front. And we close out the month with an average of 64% positive, which means that throughout the month, 64% of the room was green on a daily basis. So that's what we got on that front. I'm going to be popping off here in a couple of minutes. And that's about it. Chris, hey, Carter, thanks for the market daily. Any indicators of recession? You know what, Carter? there's a lot of indicators out there, but this market's not really fueled on those. You know, if you've been looking at the traditional indicators for a recession, we should be in one. But you know, what should be happening isn't what's happening in these markets. These markets are kind of news driven, and they don't really care so much for the traditional indicators. So we're in an interesting environment at the moment, you know, with Trump being so vocal on Twitter, and we're kind of in a 140 character environment where a single tweet can basically change the sentiment in the market. And so, you know, based on that fact, what used to work as, you know, a traditional indicator for a recession, those are still around, but it doesn't hold as much weight these days. Jesus fan, yes, we do offer training. You'd have to pop onto our website here, TRADEPROacademy.com. You guys should see that on there. So TRADEPROacademy.com. Oops, don't allow. You guys should allow those, but I've already got those coming through. So this is our trading room. All right, guys. So you guys can check out the memberships on here, either the trading room, or you can hit up the pricing. If you're going to be looking to do day trading, you're going to want either the Pro Trader or the Elite Trader package. With the Elite package, you know, you get 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. That's our daily trading room. You get 11 to 12 p.m. the extended trading room for the Elite Traders. You get also the London trading room from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern. And then you get news trading as well, which is what we'll be doing at 1:45 p.m. We'll be jumping in and doing the FOMC statement with you guys. So if that's something you're interested in, that's where you can go do it. Elite is where you'd want to go ahead and do that. Eden, what kind of laptop can you recommend? I believe Georgie did a video with regards to mobile trading setup. You can check that one out. If you'd like, post a message or post a comment under this video. I've got to jump off here and do a call with one of our clients. But I do appreciate you guys asking those questions. If you can just pop a comment in the video or under this video, once I sign off here, I'm going to go ahead and reply back to Eden. So don't think I forgot about you here. I just got to jump off. So that's what I got for today's session, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, we will be trading with our room at 1:45 p.m. Eastern time here. So until then, I hope to see you guys in there. If not, we'll see you back on here tomorrow morning to take advantage of these markets. Until then, good luck and good trading, guys. Ciao.